Yeah, I see the title, man. Let's get
The
to it.
Michael Jordan-Scottie Pippen duo is regarded as one of the best duos in NBA history, and some would argue is the pinnacle of what a duo should be. And for two guys who play their entire primes,
That's a fact, because the way they play their roles, like, they both understand their roles very well. Like, Pippen knows you're not, you know what I'm saying? Don't try to be the number one option, you know what I'm saying? Just pass it the bike.
together won numerous championships, built an NBA dynasty. It is pretty unfortunate all these years later to see both Jordan and Pippen drifting farther and farther apart. And for this Pippen versus Jordan beef, it's a one-sided affair like you've never seen. As large as Michael Jordan remains positive, compliments Pippen, how impactful he was, how important he was, and how great of a teammate he was in Chicago. Compared to Pippen, who throws mud at Jordan virtually 24/7. And one NBA superstar Hall of Famer who's tired of seeing the Jordan disrespect is Shaquille O'Neal. As recently as Shaq didn't hold back in the slightest, calling Scottie Pippen a Robin. I mean, kinda harsh, but not exactly false.
Harsh? That's not harsh at all, in my opinion, bro. You know what I'm saying? Like, I feel like Scottie's personality was the perfect personality to take the back seat to somebody. You know what I'm saying? He don't got the leadership, I guess you could say. You know what I'm saying? Like, he was good with being the Robin. You know what I'm saying?
And if you followed the MJ vs. Pippen saga recently, it's taken a sharp left turn in a very weird direction. As Pippen's former wife is dating Michael Jordan's son.
Yeah, we already know that.
For perspective, when MJ and Pippen were teammates for their last championship, Michael Jordan's son wasn't even a teenager. All I'm going to say is that Thanksgiving this year is going to be pretty awkward both the Jordan and the Pippen households. Now, looking back at on-the-court play and Scottie Pippen's comments, he's called Jordan a selfish player, he was only a scorer, and before Pippen got there, MJ was a flat-out loser. Now, of course, these comments, they're rooted in anger, jealousy, and just Pippen being bitter. So, with Pippen really bashing Michael Jordan all the time, I think it's about time Scottie Pippen get a dose of his own medicine. As in this video, we're going to look at Pippen.
I was on the same side. He was talking crazy. I was giving Scottie some help.
On the second three-peat, and just how good he was. As contrary to popular belief, MJ's offensive supporting cast, even defensive supporting cast late on, wasn't as great as you would think.
Hey, Scott.
As looking at even Jordan's best team had been the '96 Bulls. When it came to the playoffs, if you look back on it, that team wasn't as dominant offensively outside of Jordan. As MJ, he put up his usual stats, averaging 30 points, 5 boards, 4 assists, on very impressive 46-40 and 82 splits. That is typical Michael Jordan in his great play. But looking at the Bulls supporting cast, offensively scoring-wise, not known to many, that Bulls team has the 5th lowest scoring average for supporting cast in NBA history.
Sheesh.
And looking at his two best offensive teammates, he had Scottie Pippen, as well as Tony Kukoc. Pippen averaged 16.9 points per game on sub-40 shooting, and Kukoc 10.8 on also sub-40 shooting. For Jordan's...
Damn, Kukoc, you was shooting 19% from the 3? Damn, Tony. Scottie was shooting 28. You know what I'm saying?
Pippen and Kukoc were the only two players in double figures. And pretty embarrassing, both Pippen and Kukoc combined didn't average as many points as Michael Jordan. And one thing I do really want to highlight is a massive drop-off in playoff play compared to the regular season, as Pippen went from 19 points on 46% shooting down to 17 on 39%. And Kukoc very similarly had a massive drop-off, going from 13 points on 49% shooting to 11 points on 39% shooting. The offensive help Jordan had this year in the playoffs wasn't nearly as great as you would think. The one thing this Bulls team did have that was great was Dennis Rodman, their defensive anchor, as Dennis this year averaged 13.7 boards on 49% shooting. 96 Dennis, you could argue, was the Bulls' second best player. That's how good he was defensively on the offensive glass. But sad to note, Dennis that year, I would say, was the last year of his true prime as a great player. As in 97, his overall minutes were decreased pretty significantly, going from 34.496 to 28.2 in 1997. And if you look at Jordan 97, much like 96,
Scottie put his. I said Scottie, my fault,
and
yeah.
always showed up, averaging 31.1 points, 7 point.
My fault, but Dennis put his body on the line, bro. That's one thing I fuck with Dennis about. You know what I'm saying?
And if you look at Jordan 97,
he goes
much like
man.
96, he was highly consistent and always showed up, averaging 31.1 points, 7.9 boards, 4.8 assists, on 46% shooting. For the Bulls that year in the playoffs,
3-point wasn't really
assists,
prevalent.
defense rebounds, steals, and blocks. And pretty important to note, he only had one teammate double figures, that being Scottie Pippen. But just like 96, Pippen's overall shooting was down tremendously. As before the playoffs, he was shooting 47.4%, but in the postseason, only 41.7%. And again, looking at Kukoc, he had a massive playoff drop, going from 13 points per game on 47% shooting, down to 8 points per game on 36% shooting. That's what I'm talking about with these Bulls teams and Jordan's offensive health, as both Pippen and Kukoc were highly inconsistent and not.
So that just means Mike really had to tee it up a little extra level, bro. That just it's different. That's different. Like, you can't argue with that. Can't argue with that. His teammates is selling fake shit. They dropping in the playoffs. They're not rising to the occasion at all. At all. He's still showing up though. He's doing the extra. He pulling their weight.
Reliable. You know? And the offensive load Jordan had to carry was much, much more than fans actually realize. And a quick comparison I do want to make is Pippen and Kukoc 97 compared to Wade and Bosh in 2014. As I'm talking about these players, two of these guys are propped up as great playoff guys, and the other two are discredited, downplayed, and even called old or washed. But looking at D. Wade in 2014, actually, he averaged 17.8 points on 50% shooting, and Chris Bosh 14.9 on 50.7% shooting.
That's tough.
Comparing 2014 Wade, 2014 Bosh versus 97 Pippen, 97
But there's a difference though. You know what I'm saying? This the deep. Oh my God! What I just do, y'all? Oh,
We've changed over 50,000 filmmakers' lives.
I'm tired, but yeah, man. This is an area of low defense. So the 50% and all that. That's you can't really take that. You gotta what's the word for it? Calculate for the change of pace and change of era, I guess you could say.
Take your pick of who's better.
It was still probably.
But I think Wade and Bosh as a supporting cast was actually more help. And looking at the entire Bulls team in 97, in all of NBA history, they have the second lowest supporting cast ever for a championship team. And looking at both Jordan and LeBron's two best teammates, you have Dwayne Wade from 2011 to 2014 versus Pippen from 96-98. If you compare these two players, again, Dwayne Wade is called washed old, while Scottie Pippen is propped up as a great teammate.
Who be calling him? Yo, y'all gotta stop taking these egregious and dumb takes and just, using those to argue. I mean, I understand though, because it's easy to make a video out of a dumb take. I'm about to start doing that too. The dumbest takes I see, you know what I'm saying? But that's like the most egregious LeBron fan saying that, Any LeBron fan that is objective, I guess you could say, can understand that Dwayne Wade was a top 5, top 3 player at that time, bro. Come on now. We're not going to act crazy. You know what I'm saying?
But D. Wade actually averaged 25 and 4 on 48% shooting over those 4 years, compared to Pippen, who averaged 18, 7, and 5 on only 41% shooting. And both Pippen and Wade in this time period in their late 20s, early 30s, and on the back end of their prime. And I think, objectively speaking, Dwayne Wade, at the very least, was better offensively, and I would heavily argue was the better overall number 2 option beside LeBron James compared to Pippen beside Jordan. But the funny thing is, Michael Jordan with Pippen on the back end of his prime went 3-0 in the finals. compared to LeBron with Wade, who went 2-2 and was embarrassed twice on the biggest stage. And looking at Pippen and Jordan's final championship, you have 1998. And I think this year above all else shows Jordan didn't have stacked super teams that were super overwhelming. As even with Pippen missing half the season, the Bulls won 60-plus games and the best record in the East. At that point, Chicago had the oldest roster in the NBA, and their big three were in their mid to late 30s. And looking at Dennis Rodman, he was highly inconsistent with his production on the court as well as off the court. As before the Eastern Conference Finals, he was playing a staggering 41.7 minutes. But in the East Finals, NBA Finals collectively, it was reduced down to only 29 minutes. And unlike past years, Dennis, on the offensive end largely, was a negative and not a plus or a neutral. And looking at Jordan, at this point he was 35 and still averaging 32.4 points per game. And for his Bulls supporting cast, there was no teammate above 20 points per game. Meaning Michael Jordan for the entire playoff run was responsible for 34.8% of his Bulls' overall points. That in NBA history for a playoff run ranks second all time behind Jerry West. And for eventual NBA championship runs,
you got 3 of the top spots
by a mile. My overall point of this video is pretty simple. Second three-peat Pippen was kind of overrated and overvalued. As compared to the first three-peat, he wasn't nearly the athlete or defender. And even comparing 96 Pippen to 97-98, in 96, he was a much better overall player, as was defender. As just like Rodman by 98, he was running on fumes, injured, and a shell of himself. And making one last comparison, looking at the NBA Finals. Comparing Scottie Pippen and Dwayne Wade.
Got bodied a lot back in the day. I respect it though for jumping, you know what I'm saying? I understand you gotta protect
looking
the
at
paint.
the NBA Finals. Comparing Scottie Pippen and Dwayne Wade, it's pretty interesting. As Pitt from 96-98 in the NBA Finals averaged 17 points, 8 boards, 6 assists on 39-28 and 77 splits. Again, not bad, but not top 10 level like some people think. As looking at Dwayne Wade, from 2011-2014 in the NBA Finals, he averaged 21 points, 5 boards, 4 assists, on vastly superior 48-32 and 73 splits. Again, it is pretty funny how one of these players is called old and washed and quote-unquote not enough help. But a guy who plays alongside Jordan, shooting below 40% from the field.
Come on, man. Who said that? Dwayne Wade is not enough help. Whoever said that is crazy. They just be sad, man. But that's this way, y'all. Yeah, man. He cooking Scottie out here. Showing people that Scottie was a little overrated. You know what I'm saying? And Mike, you know what I'm saying, really had to tee up a little extra. I feel it. Let me know how y'all feel in the comments, man. I'm a little tired. That's why I fake, like, you know what I'm saying? Moving a little slow and all that. But click on the last reaction, turn on post notifications. Subscribe, share the video with your people on social media platforms. I'm out here, man.